Over 2 million construction jobs around the world are taking their projects to the next level. From roadways to railways, from skyscrapers to homes. Make your vision a reality. Build with Autodesk Construction Cloud. Try it free today at construction.autodesk.com.
10, 9, 8. Ignition sequence has started. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
You have entered Untold Radio AM. And now broadcasting from a secret location, your hosts, Joel Sturgis and Doug Hychek. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychek. Well, man, the year is almost over, Doug. I just looked down, and it's already of course, I don't want to date the podcast, but I will for this time. The 29th of December. I cannot believe the year is almost over.
Yeah, it's 2 days left.
Jeez, that's it?
Yeah, one and a half days.
You know, they promised. Do you remember when they promised? They said 2020 will be so much better. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
They're like, 2020 will be the best year ever. Things will be awesome. Now I hear them saying 2022 is gonna be better.
I just heard don't hold your breath till 2024.
Yeah, right. Right.
We post pandemic in 2024.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, the weird. Okay,
yeah.
So one of the biggest effects it has on a lot of people is, like you want to order a pizza and you call a certain pizza company that should be open and they're not. I
noticed that.
Weird stuff like that. It's like.
Yeah.
Huh?
Oh, man, everywhere's hiring. I mean,
I know. There's still nobody. Oh, and I loved it. They just, and whatever. If you owe, a college student loan, you're probably happy. They just delayed the debt again.
Oh,
so you don't have to
down the road a little bit further.
Till May.
There you go.
But
till May.
Think about what that does to the labor thing, because people are like, well, I don't have any bills, so I'm living with mom and dad, so I don't need to work.
Yeah. So that's true. So that is true.
It has negative effects. There's no free lunch in anything.
No, there isn't. And I that's something that I think that a lot of people don't understand, or I'm sure our audience does, obviously, but most other people don't.
Yeah.
Is there is no free lunch.
No.
I mean, there will be a piper to pay at the end.
No matter what. No matter what, there is a price that you're going to pay, and you think you're going to get ahead, but you're not.
Well, look at this. I paid my gas bill today, right?
Yeah.
$379 for 1 month.
Yeah, that's spent.
It's gone up. It's skyrocketed 80% since September.
Fuel's going to go up big time. So, you can say, oh my God, I got a raise. Well, yeah, but you didn't really, because you're going to.
No, things will adjust.
Behind, yeah.
Yeah, things will adjust.
Yeah, if you're gonna get a raise, it better be a quantum raise.
Well, like, not to whine on this too loud, or harp on it too long. The other day, I took the kids and the wife. We went out. Was it last week or whatever, right before Christmas? We're getting Christmas shopping wrapped up. It was the morning. And I said, what the hell? Let's just go to McDonald's, get some breakfast. Just do something quick. These kids are screaming. We're hungry. You know how kids are. We're starving. So I took them in there. That was a $50 bill just to go to McDonald's for 5 people.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I know. That would have been a 5-star restaurant 3 years ago.
Excuse me, I had to mute it while he sneezed. But no, you're absolutely correct. It's insanity. It's insanity, my friend, and inflation is on the hyper end of it right now. So hopefully things calm down a little bit.
Yeah, and now,
how was your Christmas?
It was good, but Christmas Day we had something really weird happen. Super weird.
Like?
In fact, Okay, so we were watching TV, and of course, Yvette's got a Christmas-themed movie on, right?
Probably on Hallmark, yep.
Something. It's God knows what. I don't even remember the movie. And I'm looking kind of out of the corner of my eye for some reason, or I see out of the corner of my eye a thimble of ribbon, one of these big, a roll of ribbon, fly up through the air all the way to the ceiling. And then I hear it bouncing down the stairs. And of course, she was looking at it bouncing down the stairs.
Wow.
And I'm like, where in the hell did that come from? And I saw it laying on the ground, and I said, I did not use that ribbon roll, and she didn't either, and had no idea even where it came from. But what would have propelled it 9 feet in the air?
Right.
That's the weird. It was as if it was thrown at us.
Strange.
Yeah, it was as if it was thrown at us.
Wow, maybe you had a visitor stopping in to say hi.
Exactly. So here we had poltergeist activity on Christmas Day during a Christmas movie. And the weird thing is, the only other time we've ever seen a ghost is when we were at a movie theater watching a Christmas movie.
Right. Yeah.
We saw this ghost in the theater that kept coming.
Yeah, that's that money man, right?
Yeah, from the top of the stairs down and then out the door. And then he would start again at the top of the stairs, even though there was no entrance up there. And we never saw him coming in, down over and over like 20 times. And then on the way out, he was standing behind me with this like shit-eating grin on his face.
Maniacal grin. Like
he had this weird grin, and he had like this old 70s trucker hat, and he had the wire rim aviator sunglasses on.
Like the D.B. Cooper's on, yeah.
In a theater. And he grimaced at me, and then we walked out, and the two ticket takers go, "What is with that guy?" And I said, "I don't know, but don't take your eyes off him." So we're watching him, and he goes around this curve, and there's no way. You have to just go out the front doors. He went around the curve. He never went out the front doors, and I walked around, and he was gone.
That's crazy.
And we all witnessed it. Four of us.
I think you told that tale like towards Halloween or something like that. So no, it was still very interesting. It makes you wonder. Now, what was the theater you're in? Was it known to be haunted? Is it one of those old theaters, or
it was in? I'll just say it was in White Bear Lake.
Okay.
Yeah, it was not like some old. No.
Not like the Mounds View Theater or the Mounds Theater or something like that, where it's kind of known to be a little creepy.
No, but the odd detail was he had a Norwest Bank deposit bag, one of these green deposit bags in his hand.
Been out of business for
They've been out of
years.
business since the 80s.
Yeah, because Wells Fargo took them over way back in the 80s.
Somebody did, yeah. But I remember those bags because I used to make the deposits to Northwest back in the 70s. And so I remember those deposit bags, the zipper on them and everything. You put all the cash checks in. So that's the weird detail.
That is so weird.
But it was but it was during a Christmas movie.
So you're sitting there with Yvette. You guys are probably watching the show.
Yeah, we're watching
your own business.
In fact, I think it was a movie called Four Christmases.
Okay.
It's a comedy.
Yep. I've seen that one. A good one, by the way.
Yeah, it wasn't like we're watching a spooky movie. I could see it maybe in a spooky movie. Your imagination gets the best of you. But
sure.
It's a Christmas comedy.
Huh.
So maybe
sitting there and
Ghost of Christmas trying to get our attention.
Maybe someone's just stopping to say hi.
I don't know.
Who knows?
So it's the end of the year, and I was thinking, well, what are the two things that I know we're both interested. One, what's the best UFO sightings of the year, the top 10?
Mm-hmm.
And so I have those.
Oh, you do?
Yes, I do, right in front of me.
Oh.
And I don't know. I'm going to do a really brief, right? Super brief. So number 10 was the U.S. military has evidence of supersonic UFOs. So former intelligence chief John Radcliffe claims that the U.S. has evidence of objects moving at extreme speeds. So that happened this year in 2021, which was a big deal. And John Radcliffe just seems like such a no-nonsense guy.
Yeah.
I like him.
Yeah.
Okay, so number 9, airline pilot films Foo Fighter type UFOs over Pakistan. And there's a short clip of strange orb-shaped objects filmed from the cockpit of a passenger jet that has recently gone viral. So you can look it up and see it. Number 8 was it's called the Betz Mystery Sphere. And so there's debate whether it was some kind of alien device. So it was a strange metallic sphere found near the home of a family in Florida. And it sparked a whole bunch of, mystery and debate.
Sure. Controversy, my friend.
Controversy, yes. So number 7 was the U.S. Navy ships are buzzed by unidentified objects. So, and that's obviously something that came to light. Government documents have revealed that the USS Nimitz Tic Tac UFO incident was not an isolated case. So although that incident didn't happen in 2021, it was pretty much really confirmed heavily in 2021. So it was a top story. So number 6, Australia UFO report refers to a cat-faced alien. I should say cat-faced aliens. And this was a declassified UFO file from Australia. And it makes that reference to some strange extraterrestrial encounters of cat-faced aliens. But why was it classified? If it was just, blow it off, why did they classify it all those years? Interesting. Number 5, a man sees a UFO emerge from a portal over the UK. A pensioner from East Lancashire, I can never pronounce his name, Lancashire, I think that's how you pronounce it. It's the way it's spelled. Maintains that he saw something very unusual in the sky 2 weeks ago, just 2 weeks ago.
That's fresh.
And it was once again a unique story, and it went viral. Footage, and another one's number 4. Footage recorded from an airline passenger window shows an anomalous object zooming in and out of view. And that happened in 2021. And then apparently a photograph, for number 3, a photograph has emerged that was taken near the RAF Woodridge on the night of the Bentwater case on December 24th, 1980. Apparently some new photo has emerged. Now, I have not seen this photo, but I'm going to look it up when I'm done with this show.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. That's crazy stuff, especially to see that new images, because that was quite the story.
Have you seen it?
I've not seen this one, no.
Not either. Okay, so then number 2 is a FedEx pilot filmed a UFO that followed their plane. And I find this one interesting because I just got done talking to a FedEx pilot. I'd like to have on sometime. I don't know if you can give his name. But I asked him about, UFO encounters. And he's like, dude, we have so many lights on in the cockpit to keep us awake. We can't even see out the windows.
Gee.
And I'm like, I don't want to hear this.
Yeah, right.
So, okay, so back to number 2. A cargo plane reportedly encountered a mysterious object during a routine flight over Mexico last year.
Oh, wow.
And number 1 was another Rendlesham UFO photo has emerged.
Really?
A retired police officer has come forward to reveal his close encounter near the same area in 1980.
Ooh, that'd be a good one to see, too.
So I have not seen it.
That'd be a really good one to see.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
man.
So there's just, it's kind of some cool stuff. And then I looked over the top science stories.
Yeah.
I went, ho hum. They were terrible. Yeah. And so I picked 2 that were even maybe barely worth mentioning. I mean, okay, one was a new quasi-crystal was formed and that they had found in the first atomic bomb test. Okay. So it was the first atomic bomb. Okay.
Yeah. Atomic bomb.
I got tongue twisted.
Test. There you go.
1945 forged a very peculiar glassy material called trinitite. And within it is a rare form of matter called quasi-crystal. Quasicrystals. Yeah, the atoms apparently are arranged in an orderly structure like normal crystals, but the structure's pattern never repeats. And I thought, okay, now that's interesting.
That is interesting.
Now the other one, the only other story of the entire year that I thought was interesting was about frogs. And frog skin, of all weird things, right?
Yeah.
So they figured out in 2021, God knows how, that a frog skin cells actually turn themselves into living machines. They're like living machines. So it's basically a skin stem cell. So they pluck this stem cell from a frog, right? From a frog's embryo skin. And the cells they have organized themselves into a miniature living little robot. They dubbed xenobots. So these little xenobots can swim, move around independently, and even heal themselves. So they can actually steer themselves around debris in the water that they're in.
Yeah.
And these are actually so there's skulls in a frog skin that becomes independent.
Wow, so they're showing thought and they're showing problem solving abilities because they're avoiding debris in the water. Well, yes, there's consciousness there.
They call
there's
them
intelligence.
Xenobots, yeah. So they're actually they act like robots. They call them xenobots. And they think one day now they're trying to figure out, well, what can we do with this technology?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Can we turn Joel into a frog?
May then cure cancer with it.
Yeah, or turn you into a frog.
Or turn me into a frog.
Can you imagine? You just make you drink a bunch of xenobots.
There you go. And then eventually you're
I meet you at a restaurant, right? I just meet you at a restaurant. I pour a bunch of frog xenobots in your coffee.
Sure, and I'll just drink it up.
Next thing you know, you're hopping around.
That's right. I'm riveting and I'm getting flies out of the air of my tongue.
Yeah.
It'd be a good time.
Just
for
like
somebody.
Sergeant Stanenko in Up in Smoke.
Right?
Yep.
Oh boy.
So that's the only way you can, sum up 2021 with a couple of cool science stories. The other ones were boring.
Yeah. Like not a lot happened in the science end of things.
No, not really.
The only one that was making waves in the science side of things would have been Elon Musk with his SpaceX.
Oh, okay. So I read something really interesting yesterday. I love to go to isolated places like the Arctic, that have never been under development, never.
Yep.
And really, people can't really go there just because it's expensive and it's cold and there's no roads. But there's a place in Montana that's going to open up in November 2022. So Bigfoot researchers take note. It's going to open up in 2022 in the crazy mountains of Montana. And these mountains have been closed to the public for 100 years.
Really? I wonder why.
And so for the last 2.5, for the last 2 decades, they've been in negotiations to try to get a little easement road in to give people access to these mountains.
Jeez.
And so in November, that's going to open up it's just a 2.5 mile road, right?
That's it.
But there was all private property and literally, those ranches in Montana, you probably get shot before you get it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
right.
They've negotiated over 20 years, a little easement to build probably is going to be a 2-track, a little narrow road, but it's going to take people into this very scenic, crazy, Montana's crazy mountains.
Yeah.
They're snow-capped. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
A sanctuary for Bigfoot is the way I'm looking at it.
That's exactly what it is. No one's touched it in 100 years. Nope. If there's anything strange, it's going on up there.
But think about a whole bunch of snow-capped mountains that no one's been into for 100 years. That's cool.
Think of the things you're going to find. It's almost like a time capsule.
Yeah.
A natural time capsule.
100 years it's been off limits. That's just crazy. But, some of those ranches in Montana have been around 200 years.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, generational ranches there.
I mean, think about it. If you own 5,000 acres in Montana and you inherited, you're not letting it go.
No, God, no.
Hell
no.
That would be like, think about it. That would be like paradise for me.
Well, yeah, most of those ranchers, too, I mean, like I said, it's generational. So they grew up on the ranch anyway, most of them. A lot of them. And so it's fathers and sons handing it down throughout generations.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Speaking of snow-capped mountains, did you hear about Lake Tahoe? They got 16 foot of snow.
Wow.
The other day.
Man, I was complaining about the, 1.5 foot total we got around here?
Yeah, well, 16 foot, 193 inches, eh?
Jeez.
That's a lot of snow. And
that is a lot of snow.
The old record was 170 inches. That was the old record. So pretty well shattered.
Yeah, it is. I mean, they get just a lot of snow there. Crazy amount of snow.
Wait till that melts. Lake Tahoe is going to be full.
It is going to be real full. Real full.
I had the pleasure of spending quite a bit of time at Lake Tahoe once, and it's gorgeous around there. Absolutely gorgeous.
I have heard that, yeah.
It's a clear, gin clear water. People were really friendly. It was actually a little bit, I mean, I found it a little hard to breathe because it's kind of high altitude, but
yeah.
And I was there during I think it was a Black Plague outbreak, I believe.
What? A Black Plague outbreak?
It was like the Black Plague or the Plague or I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But anyhow, so I had a rental car. I was in Lake Tahoe and I thought, I'm going to go exploring, right? I had a minivan, I swear to God, a little minivan. And I brought that thing back, smashed from every angle. Every side was dented. I think I ripped the undercarriage damn near out of it. Because I went like four-wheeling for like 3 days in that thing.
And that's why they sell the insurance.
Yeah, and I had the insurance. But, I didn't do it on purpose. I just thought, well, I could make it over that little log.
Yeah.
And then you get yourself like farther and farther, and then you hit another obstacle, and you're like, but it's getting really cool, and the trees are so huge. And,
oh, you just want to keep going and going and going. Yeah.
It's a magical area. It really is.
Yeah. Beautiful area. The whole area is just wonderful.
You got to go there. I'm telling you, Joel. Just take your family. Just take a Lake Tahoe vacation. It's worth.
There you go.
It really is.
Yeah, that sounds like something I should definitely be doing. It sounds like something that'd be a lot of fun.
Well, there's a lake I want to go to. I haven't gone to. It's in Idaho, and it's similar to Lake Tahoe. It's Khoury, it's actually where Tim Storms lives. Remember our one guest that we just keep trying to get on?
Right.
Out. And by the way, can we do the pre-record this Sunday with Tim?
So I'll be at work.
Oh my. Okay. Well, you're gonna have to let me know. The only days available, the poor guy, is Sunday right now.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. During the day job, I only get 3 days off every 2 weeks.
How about we do a Sunday night late?
Not this Sunday because I have family over.
How about next Sunday?
Well, next Sunday is a possibility. We'll get off air. We'll get that figured out. It could be late
because for him, he's 2 hours ahead of us.
Yeah. Because we're still going to be doing that whole New Year's thing.
Yeah, it's new. Yeah, once we get past this, we'll have him on.
Yeah. Oh yeah, we absolutely will.
I'm really excited.
Things will be they'll be a calm down after the New Year, which will be nice.
Yeah.
So yeah.
What time we got? Okay. So I got one more thing I was going to mention. We
got to mention this though. We're having Orion Musgrave-evans on tonight.
God, yeah.
Yeah, author of Children of Orion, Finding the Cryptoterrestrials.
Have you ever, that was, by the way, my paranormal word of the day, cryptoterrestrials, because it's like the coolest word, and you have no idea what it means. But what does it mean? We're going to let Ryan explain it.
Okay. That'll be interesting to see what he says about that.
I mean, I saw that and I went, I got to have this guy on.
Right?
And he writes a book about cryptoterrestrials, and I'm like, sounds
makes you go, what the hell is that?
And the more I learned about him, the more I'm like, oh my God, he's a real brilliant guy. He speaks a number of languages.
Sure.
He's an educator, and he's just obviously formed a lot of really cool opinions and theories, and so I think it'll be a blast to talk to him.
Yeah, we'll have him on and and kind of get, find out what these cryptoterrestrials are.
Yeah, and he lives,
and more about him.
He lives in Victoria, Australia.
Oh, so he's like 12 hours ahead of us.
No, keep going. 17.
17, huh?
Yeah, Victoria is on the very far, if you're looking at a map of Australia, the far right southern end. So he's as far away as you could possibly get.
So it's like
from us.
10 p.m. tomorrow?
No, it'll be like 12:30, like noon, 12:30 p.m. Thursday.
Yeah, so we get to talk to someone in the future.
In the future, yes.
Yeah. Well, how often you get to talk to someone that's in the future?
I do every day. I talk to people from Australia almost every day.
Do you really?
Yeah, because I've got friends. And
they say, good day, mate.
Yeah, it's just, I still have not been there for some odd reason.
You've never been to Australia?
No, I haven't. And I think the reason is I keep thinking about that long flight.
Well, I have been to Australia.
Yeah?
And everything there wants to kill you.
Yeah, and
that's the gist I got about the outback.
You have 5 minutes to tell us about your trip.
Oh, I was in my 20s. I went on a trip to Australia, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. This is probably circa 1997, 1998.
What part of Australia did you go?
Sydney. Of course, Sydney, Australia. And then I went from there and just kind of took a tour of Australia. And it's a big country, though. It's a big country. But a lot of it is, most of their population, at least at that time, unless it's changed, I don't think it has, is going to be city dwellers because the outback is so inhospitable.
Yeah, yep.
So, most of what was going on were in the cities. You didn't have like a lot of rural living, that far from the cities. But they would tell me, if you get out to the outback, everything there it's designed to kill you. It's very, that way, where there's snakes and spiders and things that will, trample you and kill you. And I did find out, firsthand experience, that kangaroos are very, very violent critters.
Oh, yeah.
They're very violent.
Lucky and Claya.
They punch each other, for crying out loud. Yeah. They will beat their living, and their claws are so sharp on their hind legs. People have been disemboweled by these things. Yeah. They're that sharp. It will cut you right open, gut you up, gut you like a fish, they said.
It's weird because they go kangaroo hunting there like we do deer hunting.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Well, I would imagine from afar, and if you can get that, if you're hunting them, that's one thing because you know what you're doing, you know what you're after. But if you're an unsuspecting tourist and you're like, oh, look at the kangaroo, let's go pet it. Yeah, don't do that.
So I was named after my uncle who was from Melbourne.
Oh, interesting.
And so okay. I still have relatives in Melbourne. Some I would imagine in Sydney.
Sure.
And so it'd be fun to go there and visit these, they're cousins, of course.
Yeah. It's kind of like distant cousins, so you'd be able to meet them and connect with them. Do you ever talk to them?
I saw my grandfather one time who came from, or my uncle, Uncle Doug, came from Australia one time to visit us. And just a cool guy. I mean, I'll never forget how cool he was.
Okay, but if you're related to Doug and you're listening right now and you're in Australia, hit him up.
There you go.
Hit him up. Hit Doug up.
I think
email him up. Facebook him.
I would imagine my sister knows who they are and has their addresses.
Could be. Sisters are good at that kind of stuff.
I'm terrible.
Just saying. Yeah, I am too. I am too. I got family in Rochester I hardly ever see, and that's just Rochester.
Rochester, and you still
Minnesota.
Them?
Yeah.
Okay, well, yeah, but you can't get down on me not seeing my Australian relatives.
Right? So I have no opinion. I have nothing to say on that one. But I can say this. We're going to run a break. When we come back, we're going to be talking with Ryan. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back right after this.
Hi, Tom Bodette. If you can hear me, then you have an internet connection, which means you can do cool things online, like listen to streaming radio, obviously, or watch a video of a monkey washing a cat. Let your freak flag fly. Or you can book a room at a great price at Motel6.com. Isn't the internet wonderful? Everything you want right at your fingertips, and whoa, did not need to see that. I'm Tom Bodette for Motel 6, and we'll leave the light on for you.
Unexpected reactions to smart financial decisions brought to you by feedthepig.org.
Well, I finally did it. My student loan is totally paid off.
I can't believe it.
I can't believe it either. I paid more than the minimum each month, and soon enough, it was gone.
So you're just giving up?
Giving up on what?
The life of luxury. Egyptian cotton, caviar Thursdays, designer everything.
What are you talking about?
Our plan. What happened to winning the lottery and mastering the art of the perfect mimosa? Hosting galas, wearing enough jewelry to require a bodyguard, vacationing in the French Riviera, and then buying it.
I just thought maybe it was time to prepare for my future. You know, set some financial goals, make some smart investments, open a 401k.
Financial goals? Investments? A 401k? You are horrifying right now. Listen, if winning the lottery were easy, everyone would do it.
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind. Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org. This message brought to you by the American Institute of CPAs and the Ad Council.
Northern Tool and Equipment.
So me and the boys head out to tailgate today and find some other fans in our spot.
Well, it happens.
Cheering for the wrong team.
Oh, this is war.
Even worse, they've got this couch set up and everything.
A couch?
Yeah, it's sectional.
All right, first thing, don't ever use the word sectional again.
Done.
Second, I want you to grab a 4,700-pound tow chain with J-hook and grab hammer. Throw that on the back of your truck.
Got it.
Now you're going to Hail Mary the J-hook over the end of that couch. Time to find a better spot for your new friends.
That should do it.
There's no problem a little horsepower can't solve. Northern Tool and Equipment.
Taking a family of 5 to the amusement park can cost a small fortune.
Oh, yeah. So to save some money, we thought, hey, let's bring the amusement park to us. Yeah. Go ahead.
All right. Step right up, young man. Are you ready to ride the wacky waterfall?
That's just the bathtub with the shower head running.
Nope, it's the wacky waterfall.
It's the shower, Dad.
Waterfall.
Wacky.
There's an easier way to save. To get a free rate quote, go to geico.com. Then buy online, over the phone, or at your local Geico office.
Green light. Hey, girl. School zone. I'm getting hungry. Car changing lanes. You want to meet me for pizza? Stop sign. Intersection clear. Yeah, street. Pizza sounds good. Ballin Street? Girlin Street!
It's hard to concentrate on 2 things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
And welcome back to Untold Radio AM. I'm your host, Joel Sturgis. Right along with me is Mr. Doug Hychek. Doug, we made her.
Yeah.
We made her past the break.
We got Ryan in the green room successfully, even though he's 17 hours away from us in the future.
What a trooper, man. 17 hours. And we did talk to him. We do not blow ourselves up. The future's looking good, he said. So that's good. We haven't done anything stupid quite yet, but, there's always time left. But anyhow, we got a great guest, as Doug said, great guest on tap. We got, of course, let me go ahead and get my notes here. Here we go. Author of Children of Orion, Finding the Cryptoterrestrials. Ryan resides in Victoria, Australia. He has a diploma of education, a primary or elementary school. If you're here in the States, it's commonly known. He's a teacher, elementary teacher. He has a degree in that, and he lives in Swinburne, or actually got it from Swinburne University in Melbourne, and a Bachelor of Arts of Philosophy. He is a private language tutor of Irish and Scots, Gaelic. Okay, now that is cool right there. We got to talk about that, Doug. I've always loved that kind of speak, by the way. Just want to throw that in there. Ryan is also full-time. What is a nurseryman, Ryan?
Yes. Well, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was supposed to be talking.
No, go ahead. Feel free.
Hiding in the corner for a minute. A nurseryman. Well, in Australia, that's what we call like someone who does tree farming and nursery work with plants. So I used to work on a farm, and I was a budder and a grafter of trees.
Gotcha.
So wholesale tree farming for
Gotcha.
years.
Okay.
So when you graft, are you grafting like fruit trees so they can produce fruit, that type of things?
Yeah, different kinds of fruit trees primarily, but lots of different kinds of trees, and budding as well, which is another way of forcing one tree to latch onto another one and begin growing. For about 5 years I did that work. Nice stuff outdoors. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, couldn't beat that. I mean, beautiful weather, being able to be outside, working outside, man. But I will finish this intro. He is also insatiable preoccupation with comparative linguistics. Gosh.
Yeah.
Philosophy, folklore, religious studies, and all research into the paranormal. And I want to thank Ryan. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, Ryan Musgrave-Evans is with us tonight.
Hey, thank you guys. Joel, Doug, good to be here.
So Ryan, when I first read the log line on your book, Cryptoterrestrials, I went, that is like the coolest name I've ever heard for anything in the paranormal. What in the world does it mean?
Well, I can't unfortunately take credit for coining that. That was the late, great Mac Tonnies, who came up with what he called the cryptoterrestrial hypothesis. And he floated it out there as an alternative theory to the extraterrestrial hypothesis, which of course says that the beings related to, encountered in close encounter phenomena and abduction phenomena and things like that, extrasolar aliens. He said, hold on a second, we don't necessarily have to make them alien to the Earth. In fact, perhaps it fits the data better and the evidence better to suggest that they're something indigenous to this planet, probably subterranean dwelling with advanced technologies that have been living here cheek to jowl with us. Interested in our genetics, it would seem, from a lot of the cases, of course, that crop up in UFO literature. Why would, in Mac Tonnies' opinion, and I agree with him very much, why would extrasolar creatures without an evolutionary history related to our planet or to us have an interest in our genetics and also in procreating with us in the old-fashioned way, which crops up in some cases as well, like Antonio Villas Boas in 1957 in Brazil, and Peter Khoury in Sydney in 1992 in Australia, where sometimes these beings take a sexual interest in us, similar in ways to perhaps incubi and succubi legends of old, or Lian and Shi fairy lovers. So Mac Tonnies said cryptoterrestrials, he defined it, as hidden earthlings, really, it literally means, I suppose you'd say. But important to his theory, which I've adopted and sort of taken the torch and continue to use that word, because I think he was very spot on with it, and it's relevant to these beings. He built into the theory a lot of Jacques Vallée inspired ideas, where Jacques Vallée, when he wrote Passport to Magonia, said, hey, there's a lot of similarities here between ancient beliefs in societal humanoid beings living on the fringes of our world, such as elves and fairies and whatnot, and the non-human ufonauts, the UFO pilots of today, and that there may be some kind of continuity of experience between identical races. So the cryptoterrestrials are like an umbrella term for elves, fairies, jinn, and older beings of ancient lore and belief, and the modern aliens, or ETs as they'd be called today.
Would Bigfoot fit into that category too?
No. Well, these beings. Well, I suppose people normally define Bigfoot as a cryptid, but I suppose if you could show that Bigfoot was advanced enough in some way, suggest that they were cryptoterrestrials as well, perhaps, as societal beings living on the fringes of. I
think of like the things like Mothman and the wing creatures and things that seem to defy gravity, and they seem to be able to fly without ever flapping their wings. They seem very advanced. I just wonder if these are things too that could fit into that category.
Well, I actually talk a lot about a kind of suit or advanced gear, it's actually a military grade outfit that a certain kind of cryptoterrestrial, the tall white cryptoterrestrials, that they wear. And I show through my book in different cases that there's a strong evidence for this kind of technology, which is a kind of dark suit, dark grey to black, that can cloak, can levitate, has glowing red eyes, particularly at night, has a long nose-like appendage that hangs down the front, which helps to like resonate sound and reverberate and mimic sounds, and has long claw, like prosthetic claws on the hands, has like a circular kind of technology on the chest, and I call them Boas suits after Antonio Villas Boas, his case, because an early example of these very suits, I think, he encountered in his case in Brazil, because there were these dark-suited beings that wrestled him on board a craft. But they keep cropping up. I mean, in Chris Bledsoe's Fayetteville incident, he talks about cloaking red-eyed beings, and also Chris Bledsoe had other encounters with beings that he thought looked like Mothman at night, and did a sketch of them as well. So it is, in my opinion, Mothman is an interpretation of one of these cryptoterrestrials in a particular kind of presentation when they're wearing their stealth suits.
Okay.
It's interesting. I always bring that up because we had something drop out of the sky and swoop towards our car, came right to the windshield, and yet it never flapped its wings. It appeared to, when it dropped straight down with its wings open, I mean, it defied all physics.
Yeah.
And then came right at our windshield, and you're left wondering, what was that all about? What was it? Is that thing living in the forest, or is it some type of a creature living on the edge? You know what I mean? Another dimension or whatever. Right. And so are cryptoterrestrials living in other dimensions, or can they travel back and forth, or what's, explain how they hide, I guess.
Yeah, well, if I can quickly go back to Mac Tonnies again, this is where Mac Tonnies' cryptoterrestrial hypothesis actually departs from earlier hypotheses like that of Jacques Vallée that said that there's these beings living here, but that they may be ultra-dimensional or metaphysical, paraphysical in some way, using the multiverse in some way perhaps. And also John Cahill, who had ideas about beings or races that are here and they're here to stay. And you could say, well, that's sort of like a cryptoterrestrial kind of thing. But then he suggested they were ultra-dimensional and called them ultra-terrestrials. What Mac Tonnies said was, hold on a sec, guys, why are we making them supernatural? Why not bring it back to flesh and blood? Let's just say, as a hypothesis, so for Mac Tonnies, these beings were not necessarily real. He did not necessarily believe it, but it was a hypothesis that he thought fitted better the evidence as it stands today. But anyway, so he said, okay, but there's no real need to make them ultra-dimensional or magical or existing sort of outside our perception really in some kind of ultra-dimensional way. He said, okay, we've got flesh and blood race that by way of nuts and bolts technologies has been pulling the wool over our eyes by manipulating our minds through sophisticated nuts and bolts technologies, but nuts and bolts nonetheless, based very much on the concrete, on the physical material world. Mess with our minds, cloak, change memories, make themselves through hypnosis or mesmerization appear to be things that they aren't. And if you have a group of people with technology so advanced that they can do this, you don't really need them to be magical. Now, of course, these kinds of, or ultra-dimensional or anything like that, or unnatural in some way, but these kinds of the words sort of collapse when a technology, I'd imagine, that's so sophisticated but has base reality in a nuts and bolts world, just like we live in. If it becomes advanced enough that these beings can manipulate their physical forms and the forms of their craft so that they can become intangible and pass through solid objects, by shifting their own atomic structure to pass through solid objects, if they can make themselves invisible, if they have the technology to levitate. The difference between nuts and bolts and physical.
Hi, I'm Randy, and this is Dave.
We're the founders of Bombas, the most comfortable socks in the history of feet.
So comfortable, we sold and donated millions of pairs.
To sell and donate a lot of socks, we became obsessed with comfort.
We reinvented the sock from the ground up, adding comfort innovations along the way.
It worked. People tried them, loved them, told their friends about them,
helping us sell and donate millions of pairs.
Try them now at bombas.com/comfy and get 20% off your first order. That's bombas.com/comfy.
Over 2 million construction jobs around the world are taking their projects to the next level. From roadways to railways, from skyscrapers to homes. Make your vision a reality. Build with Autodesk Construction Cloud. Try it free today at construction.autodesk.com.
And something ultra-dimensional starts to fall away, particularly if they're using advanced technologies to open portals or wormholes. It all falls together in the end. But what I try to do, and what Mac Tonnies did before me, was even if it ends up being that the beings are multidimensional through way of sophisticated technology, you can't really start there, or you'll never find them. You have to start in a way at the base, so that you have to get rid of the woo-woo as much as you can, I think. If it all ends up being woo-woo at the end, then well and good. But to locate these beings, which I've tried to do in my book, through cases, through fairy lore, and then up through the Charles Hall's Millennial Hospitality books, and then the Fayetteville incident of Chris Bledsoe and things like that, trying to demonstrate through my book by building what I call a cryptoterrestrial profile, or CT profile, like a compendium of characteristics, traits, appearance, habitation, language, history, technologies, behaviors, and try to constantly seek these beings out through different cases. And each case in turn serves to inform the list and expand it, so that by the end of the book, I would like to think that I've given a quite complete image, explanation, description of these beings as they actually exist. But they are physical, but then there's technologies are so advanced that in the end, the word physicality just sort of loses its meaning.
Yeah.
I mean, that totally makes sense.
Yeah, we just can't perceive them because they're so far advanced from us that their technology would look forward anyway, because we've never seen anything like it.
That's right, yeah.
So,
and I sort of, sorry, do go on.
Well, I was just going to say, how do you think they view us? I mean, are we viewed as, little playthings? Are we viewed as something that gives them something?
Well, I am an experiencer of these beings as well. Now, for a lot of people, my credibility immediately falls out the floor when I say something like that. But I've been experiencing this particular race that I've launched the investigation about all my life, but particularly in the last 10 years, that the interactions really shot up in intensity and frequency and all that kind of stuff. But they are very unimpressed with us, especially our socio-political systems, and especially in relation to the way that we misuse and abuse our own people and allow people to starve on the streets and all this kind of stuff. This kind of stuff is just completely alien to them, and they think very little of us as a race because of that. Having said that, sometimes there's certain individuals that they don't think quite as little of as others. They're not overly impressed with our like industrial military complex, with a lot of our politicians. They're not impressed with our ideas about the state of our environment and how we're not acting quickly enough, in their opinion, to address the damage of the biosphere, which is happening all the time. So yeah, in a lot of ways, they don't think much of us at all, but they do require us to augment their own failing genomic structure. So we're kind of like, as far as I understand it, we're kind of like free-range, archaic humans to them, because through my investigation, I try to show that their origins are that they are a version of us that has come from a future time, returned to a point in its history, when its genomic structure was more healthy, i.e. now, we are physically, they have real issues. Their bodies don't heal properly. They have extreme allergic reactions to a lot of things. They have a lot of illnesses that are particular to their race. And they've tried to fix these things and they just can't. And a lot of the issues came about because of genetic engineering, because they were deliberately interfering in their own genomes to lengthen their lifespan, to try and do away with disease, which caused unforeseen side effects, symptoms that some of them positive, some of them negative. One of them is that they continue to grow all their lives. So yeah, they got lifespans that can be quite long, 700-800 years for some individuals, but they get so tall in the end and can become so feeble with the height that they can barely move around properly anymore without advanced technologies like these suits.
Yeah.
But so there it is. Sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but
no, you're not. This is extremely interesting. You're very articulate, Ryan.
Thank you.
And that, of course, like you mentioned, the height, that they just keep growing. And of course, you just, mind is going through all because I produce Monster Quest, and I'm as familiar with, what's out there in the crypto world and odd. And in so many cases, these reports, everything's so tall, big, even Bigfoot.
Yeah.
This Mothman thing that I saw was huge. And you just wonder, that you may be dead on. I love your theories. And for you, they're not theories. Is that correct? I mean, you really, truly feel that you're experienced and have knowledge, correct?
Yeah. I have been experiencing them a lot for the past 10 years or so. When I moved back again to the general vicinity that I grew up in. So I'd been away, lived away from that area for a fair while and didn't have as many interactions and things like that. But when I came back home again, came back with my wife and children, interactions rarely picked up. And I'd been having interactions when I was a little kid that I thought were with elves or fairies or something like that, which inspired a passion for Celtic mythology and folklore and the Celtic fairy faith and things like this, because I thought I was having interactions with elves or fairies. Elves or fairies in the older, more traditional sense of, the old sense of, not really, like Santa's little helpers at the North Pole or miniature women with wings and things like that, but fairies as they were sort of understood to be in the older Celtic fairy faith, where there were a few different versions, but one of them called Nahuishlan, the gentry in Ireland and Scotland, were tall, fair, that would whistle amongst themselves, but could speak the language of whichever group of humans they wanted to interact with without accent. Subterranean dwelling, could manipulate your mind, could appear to look like, confuse your senses so that and present sort of like false impressions, so that they look like older people or younger people or whatever, that would float around as lights, luminous blobs on the horizon at dusk as will-o-wisp. And then, but then when they came closer, you could see that they're luminous people in suits. I mean, that little description I just gave then is Charles Hall's Tall Whites. Charles Hall's Tall Whites chirp and whistle. They're subterranean dwelling. They wear luminous glowing suits. They're tall, fair beings. They manipulate your mind, can present different images than the actuality. Oh, and the poltergeist element is also there in the old fairy faith. They were mischievous and would enter into people's houses and put the iron, under the bed, or take the milking pail and put it in the kitchen and all that kind of stuff, which is what Charles Hall had happened with him in his Millennial Hospitality books. Would your listeners be quite familiar with Charles Hall, do you think, or should I very quickly just
why don't you discuss that a little bit? I've never heard of that before, so why don't you expound on that?
Charles James Hall, he wrote his first books in the early 2000s. He called them Millennial Hospitality, and by now I think he's written 6 books, but he he claimed to be stationed at Nellis Air Force Base in the 60s as a weather observer. So he'd go out into Indian Spring Valley, the gun ranges, the ranges there at Indian Springs, and he'd have a theodolite and he'd have balloons, and basically it was his job to just measure the wind direction and speed and things like that and call it back in. But while he was there, he had prolonged and regular interaction with these beings, like I just described, whistling, chirping, tall, fair beings, that were living in the mountains there at Indian Springs. And they would come close to him sometimes. They were very, very nervous around him. He came to learn that that there was a massive amount of people that had gone before him that hadn't lasted at the post very long at all. They'd either go mad with fright, or they'd claim to be ill. They'd just bail out. They'd be reposted elsewhere. But he actually stuck to that for 2 years with these beings that he called tall whites. So he coined that term really up until that point in the from what I understand in the general world of ufology, these beings were often called Nordics. And now some people think that tall whites and Nordics are two different things. But up until the point of Charles Hall's books coming out, people would normally have considered these things to be Nordics, especially in like the intelligence community. That was sort of slang for these kinds of beings. But anyway, so he ended up befriending, or they befriended him, some of the particular individuals. He got to know them very well. They'd speak a language that was a mixture of earth animal sounds. So he thought that they were meadowlarks at first. And you hear the chirping and whistling and twittering and things like that. But they'd also bark and growl and yelp like coyotes. That sometimes they might sound like they're whinnying, like a horse neighing. And he said that they have sounds that they make that are too high and too low for Homo sapiens to hear. He wrote his books. His books have been fairly well received. I think a lot of people question whether or not it actually happened. It definitely did. These are the same beings that I have interactions with, and in my book, I try to show that many different people have had interactions with these very same beings, the same beings that Antonio Villas Boas, Peter Khoury, Christopher Bledsoe Sr. have had interactions with, and many other people besides. They often present themselves, if you're having interactions with them, you most usually think your house is haunted. You don't necessarily interpret interaction with tall whites as being ET interaction, because they often appear as shadow people. When they're wearing their suits, they often these boa suits, they appear as dark shadows. They can pass through walls. If you hear laughter and talking or music playing, dark shapes standing over your bed in the middle of the night, these kinds of things, this is characteristic of cryptoterrestrial interaction, more so than ghost interaction. Or in fact, most of the time when I'm watching, like ghost paranormal hunter shows and ghost shows and things like that, most of the interactions I see when I think it's a genuine phenomena they're interacting with, they are, in my opinion, interacting with these cryptoterrestrials, but interpreting them as being sometimes demonic or sometimes ghostly, as I said before, deceased human interactions and things like that. But so their presence explains, if not all, then at least most, in my opinion, paranormal phenomena through the ages.
Yeah, kind of begs the question of, if they're so advanced, why don't they just kind of take over? Yeah, well, I think that you see what I'm saying? It's something that occasionally is on the cards. I think it depends on what level of advancement we're at and how much we're impinging on their reality and threatening their lives. Because at the moment we're a bit of a threat because we're not really behaving ourselves. I mean, they need a constant supply of every generation of an access to Homo sapiens as earlier versions of themselves. So I don't know what you'd like to call them. I call them children of Orion because, as I talk about in my book, the evidence would suggest that in our future, or it's a potential future, it won't be our future anymore probably. It's a different timeline, but where they came from in a version of our future,
They left Earth and went to the system of Al-Nalam, or Epsilon Orionis, which is the middle star of Orion's belt. And for an extended period, for tens of thousands of years even, I think, they lived on an Earth-like planet, or perhaps it's plural, it might be Earth-like planets orbiting Al-Nalam. So that's why I've called the book Children of Orion, because they have a relationship to Orion, but nonetheless are indigenous to this planet, which means that the cryptoterrestrial label still applies because they were originally from here. And they've tried everything they could to heal themselves and do away with their pathologies and maladies that haunt them. But they could not work it out themselves, and they needed to come back to the source. Humans before we started messing with our own DNA too much. So we're sort of we're pure in that sense, that we're the products of natural selection.
We're a version of them before they went off the rails, is what you're saying.
Yeah. So that's why we're quite important to them.
Gotcha.
Do you feel, Ryan, that some of them are evil and some of them are very good?
Yeah. Well, they're like us in this. Well, I think there are a few different races. There's been 4. I'm fairly certain just 4 of these what you could probably call cryptoterrestrial races that are different future lineage versions of us. But the one I focus on in my book is the one that's often called Nordics, Tall Whites, or Uishlan Shiikan, and who call themselves the Mudjana, which is what they said to me that they're called. But I think that this is the same word as the Wanjana from the Kimberley, the Australian, Indigenous Australian spirits known as the Wanjana. Or also, it's been recently brought to my attention that the Zulus in Africa have the Mwajana as well.
Over 2 million construction jobs around the world are taking their projects to the next level, from roadways to railways, from skyscrapers to homes. Make your vision a reality. Build with Autodesk Construction Cloud. Try it free today at construction.autodesk.com.
Non-human entities that they believe in. So this word gets bandied about a bit. They call themselves the Mudjana, but they have the full range of emotional types and outlooks and personality types that we have ourselves. So some of their group are particularly disagreeable, so especially some of the people in their military and high up in their military. They have a very stratified, efficient military. But then they also have a priestly class. They have their own spirituality, which is largely based on, it's very similar to some of our sort of Eastern mystical religious systems and things like that. But, sure. But that's just the way they see the world. But then you can have, the whole gamut of harsh cruelty and compassion, just as Homo sapiens ourselves are. Now, evil, some of them are incredibly arrogant, and they've become that way through time, I think, interacting with us because in certain ways they are quite superior to us. And sometimes they feel, it's an unfortunate position to hold, to consider, another race of people to be inferior to you and to take on sort of like a condescending arrogance towards them or whatever. But I do think that they're guilty of that a lot of the time, or some of their people are. But then, you get really compassionate beings amongst them.
Yeah. One question I have: do you think any of them are in leadership in running the world? Are posing as humans?
I think they have a lot of sway. These. I mean, I am very much of the opinion that what was once called majestic does exist, and it has gone through a whole slew of different names over the years, I think. But basically that the puppeteers behind the scenes and the power structure behind what was called majestic and things like that and the idea of Area 51 and S4 and things like that, I'm quite convinced that this is all based on a reality. These people know about the cryptoterrestrials, we could call them, or you could call them extraterrestrials as well, because in a sense they're extraterrestrials too. They spent a long time, particularly this particular race I'm writing about, spent tens of thousands of years in the constellation of Orion. So you could really call them extraterrestrials too if you wanted to. But these guys, these beings, the powers that be know very well that they exist. They've had treaties with them, interaction with them, and they know that they're not to be trifled with as well. These particular cryptoterrestrials, the tall whites, can be very violent and aggressive if they feel that it's in their best interest to be, if they feel threatened, and they don't mess about. And basically, the people that run our show, I am sure, are frightened of these cryptoterrestrials, to the point that if the cryptoterrestrials decide that something is going to happen, it does happen. Yep. For the most part, though, they leave us unto our own devices. But every once in a while, it's my opinion, through history, particularly of late, there's been a hand of cryptoterrestrial influence in trying to shift our worldview away from certain dangerous, self-defeating positions. We're going to go extinct and the planet's stuffed if we don't do something about this. Now, I know that this sounds like a bit of a sort of hippy-dippy idea and approach to being an environmentalist about it all, but they are themselves, the cryptoterrestrials, of this kind of opinion. The biosphere has to survive,
Yeah, but here, think about this, though. If we end up destroying ourselves in some way, does that mean they cease to exist? Because you're talking like they're from the future.
Well, their own... I'm fairly sure they can't get back to their own future. The ones that are left here can't get back again, and they've stayed of their own volition. Okay. But something to do with when two different timelines become too divorced from one another and dissimilar, it can be very, very difficult to navigate your way home. And that there was some kind of turning point where they had up to a certain time before they could leave, and some chose to remain. Now, as things stand, yes, they do need us. They require healthy, archaic, free-range humans to, or at least a certain, population of them of a certain size, to exist. That's right. Otherwise, they have real problems, and their DNA is unraveling. And they wear, they're still compatible with our environment anyway, because they came from here. They evolved on this planet. They are us. But they often still do wear technologies like these suits, wear breathing apparatus because of the allergens. They have real problems with pollen, and if they're getting dust and things like that in their lungs, this can cause massive infections and problems to them that for us it'd be nothing. We'd laugh it off.
Kind of reminds me of the War of the Worlds, where it was a simple cold that took down the aliens.
Yeah, that's right. That's it. But they're also immune to some of our diseases. Like the Peter Khoury's, when Peter Khoury, Australian experiencer in 1992, woke up to find a tall white female sitting on him, and some people are a bit embarrassed by this particular interaction, and doesn't get a huge amount of a platform, I don't think, in ufology, unfortunately, but it might be due to the sexual overtones or whatever. But he actually kept a hair that has had DNA tests done on it. And there's a book called The Hair of the Alien by Australian researcher, ufologist Bill Chalker. I recommend people should get that. They found that, lots of different interesting things, but amongst it, they found that there was an immunity to some of our sexually transmitted diseases.
Okay.
Also, they found Gaelic DNA in the hair, which I found interesting because, there's a lot of folklore from Ireland and Scotland and Europe in general about Annan She, the fairy lover, the beautiful elf that comes into the house at night, or beckons and calls away a mortal to have trysts elsewhere, maybe like in the woods or in the earth. There's been this trade of genetic material happening for centuries. So the idea that a tall white female in Sydney that Peter Khoury met would have Gaelic and Basque DNA in her sounds fair enough to me, seeing they're always augmenting themselves with our own program.
Let's take this a little more personal, Ryan. Do you want to, explain what you've seen, what you've experienced, and maybe even talk about your first, memory?
Yeah. Now there's a few of these that I often wheel out, and I talk about them a lot. And people that are subscribed to my YouTube channel or have listened to other interviews I've done might roll their eyes if they hear me talking about the same ones over and over again. But I'll talk about one in particular, though, because you mentioned the first. But this is one that I've talked about a few different times, where what really got me interested in fairies, and what was my first memory of an interaction with these guys is would have been the summer of 1983. So the summer to us. So Christmas 1983. I was just on the cusp of turning 5 years old. And we were down at a local woodland that ran adjacent to a golf course where there was a pine tree forest. And about a week before Christmas every year was traditional for us to go down and lop a limb off one of the pine trees and drag it home and stick it in a bucket and pretend it was a Christmas tree and do that. That's how we got our Christmas trees, from the big old pines that grew nearby about a kilometre away from home. But one year when I was there, my older brothers and sisters jumped the fence, went into the woods, and I stood there with my mum with my baby brother on her hip, and there was this being behind a tree, and it was not very far away. I'd say something between 20 and 50 foot away, behind the trunk of a large pine tree, peeking out at me. Now, it looked to me like its face was triangular shaped, so it had like a long pointed chin and high cheekbones, big black eyes. And then on top of its head, it had what looked like ridges or something like that. 4 really long fingers that wrapped around the side of the tree. And then it went from one side of the tree back in and then out to the other side. And I said to my mother, "What's that?" And she said, "That's your brothers and sisters." And I was like, no. What's that thing there? And it kept peeking out at me. And its skin, I always thought it looked like it had a mask on. And its body and its hands looked like they were made out of the pine tree. To me, it looked like they were made out of it was made out of the bark of the pine tree, the same kind of texture. And I was thinking at the time, I wasn't quite sure what to make of that. And my brothers and sisters walked past, couldn't see it. So since then, as an adult, I've seen those suits a fair few times. So this is a Boas suit, and it was the first time I'd ever seen one, a cloaking suit. So that meant that I believed that fairies or elves or some kind of tree spirits existed, because I thought, I've seen one. So then that inspired me through my teenage years to be passionate about Celtic folklore and things like that. And then through my 20s even. And then I had a very interesting experience where I was camping in the Dandenong Ranges. And this also is relevant probably because where I had this experience is not too far away from where Callie Cahill, the Australian experiencer, had her experience with the dark beings, tall, skinny, dark beings with glowing red eyes herself in the 90s. But I was camping in Sherbrooke Forest near Belgrave in the Dandenong Ranges in Australia, and had an experience where I decided I wanted to meet fairies because I knew that they were real. So I went and I was camping on my own off in the forest. And in the middle of the night, there were lights moving around through the trunks of the trees. There were hands pushing on the edges of the tent. And also that's when I first started having a kind of a thump that would hit in the middle of my head, which would be like a kind of linguistic utterance, but it would be much faster than it would take to someone to just express an idea in spoken language, like a packet of information that was nonetheless linguistic, saying things to me like, what are you doing here? And I was saying, I'll do, I've come to be your friend. I'll do whatever you like. I like to hang out with you guys. I'd like to, and then I was starting to get scared because they were like walking. I could sense that they were walking around the tent and things like that. And then all of a sudden it was morning. Like I had missing time. I don't remember falling asleep. And then on the way home, I had that kind of voiceless, silent packet of linguistic information say to me, "We will hold you to the bargain." Now that was when I was, I how old would I have been then? I think I was about 21. I'm 42 now. So that was a very, very scary experience. I ended up ringing my parents at one stage because I was really freaking out, and they were thinking, oh dear, you know, he's lost the plot. But I had different experiences happen over the years since then. One experience when I was at university, a student at university, I was probably around a similar age. I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a blonde girl with big blue eyes crouching next to my head. I was on a mattress on the floor. I didn't actually have a bed. The mattress is set up on the floor. There's this young girl smiling, looking straight at me. And I just lost the plot and spun around and tried to kick her, which is a bit embarrassing now to admit, trying to kick. But I had this sort of like fight or flight reaction where I knew the immediate reaction was no one is supposed to be in this room. I don't recognize this person, therefore I'm going to kick them. So I started trying to kick. She ran really fast around the bottom of the mattress and shot straight out the wall. And my adrenaline was just pumping so hard I couldn't get to sleep for ages. Earlier I left out as well that when I was having those experiences in the mountains, I saw a blonde girl during the day out in the middle of the forest. And I was like, what's a blonde little girl wandering around in the ferns? And so years went by with sort of minor interactions with what would be like shadow people, the poltergeist phenomena and things like that happened. But then when I moved back down here when I was about 30, back to where I'd come from, interactions sort of became more and more dramatic. And then when I was about 32 or something like that, it would have been, I had this experience where I was outside in the middle of the night and I walked and I was like, oh, this is weird. I'm standing outside in the garden in the middle of the night. No reason for being there, but I thought, oh, well, I'll go back inside. And I had my keys in my pocket. I opened the door. I put the keys on the peg behind the door. And I started to sort of slow down a bit, but I was sort of walking towards the bedroom. And all of a sudden I started levitating, taken over the top of like these baby gates, like these gates to keep our young baby at the time out of the kitchen and out of the hallway and stuff like that. Gently lifted over the top of the gate, over the top of my sleeping wife, and gently put down into bed. And then the next morning I was like, I think something just took me. And then so I said, I projected a thought and said, maybe I could remember more next time. And the next time was, I'm not sure how much later it was, but I don't think it was the next day, but not much later, within the week, I think. It happened again. I woke up, but I was on the porch and I was counting money and I was lining them up in a sort of obsessive compulsive kind of way, just sort of like lining coins up in glasses that were out on the table, out on our veranda. And then I was thinking, I'm not really supposed to be out here. Went to go inside, began to levitate and was taken up over the roof of the porch, up into a craft, and was suddenly in a bed. And a woman with huge blue eyes sat down on the edge of the bed with me. A male, very tall, really long fingers, started feeling around in my mouth and checking my teeth, then went around behind my back, behind my head, lifted my head up slightly and did something excruciating to the base of my skull. But the whole time, even though it was incredibly painful, I just felt serene. Then there were like flashes across my eyes. There was a scan as well, where there was like flashes of different images across my eyes, like I was being shown calming images of like the ocean and deserts and forests and all this kind of thing. So that was a real turning point for me there, because that's when I started to think, hold on a sec, is there a connection between this kind of experience, which feels more like what I would have thought was an ET, alien abduction experience? Is there a connection between that and my earlier fairy elf experiences? And so then that's when I really started getting into ufology.
Yeah.
And that's when I came across Charles Hall, and I was like, these are the same dudes, because I was hearing them chirping and barking and growling to each other, also making a kind of a language that I thought at the time was Japanese, but I've come to understand is their original language. They have like camouflage language. They speak in wilderness. They speak in animal sounds, which is like a camouflage language. but they have their own natural native language, which sounds more like our spoken languages. And the closest thing that I've heard to it would be something like Japanese. So I thought it was Japanese at first, but I've come to appreciate later that it's not. Now the Sierra sounds. A lot of people that are interested in Bigfoot and Sasquatch.
Mr. Moorhead's.
A lot of people that are interested in Bigfoot and Sasquatch don't like me saying this, but the Sierra sounds are definitely tall whites. 100%
really?
certain. These are the same. Yeah, the sounds that they make. You know how they sound like they're speaking Korean or Japanese?
Yeah.
They have that real sort of mumbling, sort of like
a samurai, kind of a samurai.
Yeah. And they call it that even sometimes, don't they? The samurai speech. Or, there's a wonderful example of a fellow tall white experiencer from Spain in 1978, I think it was. It's called the Khoury abductions, Julio Fernandez, where he was out with his dog shooting, and a saucer parked, and two tall, pale beings with huge blue eyes got out, invited him on board, did tests on him, seemed to be more interested in testing his dog. They were quite nervous around dogs, which is very typical of them. But they were more interested in doing tests on his dog. But he described in a wonderful way their speech. He said it sounded like a cross between German for its guttural features and Chinese for its monosyllabic nature. He said it sounded like cries from the martial arts of the Orient. That's how that was phrased. Intermixed with coughing and barking and chirping and whistling sounds, And then when he was, when a ufologist, a researcher actually got their hands on him and said, okay, we'll listen to this. I'll play a few different, world languages and tell me which one might have been closest. He ended up settling for Korean. And Korean, to a Westerner's ears, anyway, to my ears in particular, sounds very similar to Japanese. Now, these and the sounds that are made, Ron Moorhead and Al Berry recorded, these wonderful linguistic utterances there in the early 70s in those mountains, Sierra Nevada mountains. But they're definitely tall whites. Even down to the point where the sound, making sounds, experts said that the sounds were too high and too low for humans to hear. Charles Hall talks about that when he's describing tall white language.
There's one other feature that a lot of people don't know about those sounds, and that is basically if you study a spectrogram of the Sierra sounds, there is an entire tonal area mathematically that's missing, and it's in the lower end. But, to the point where you can hire a, what would you call it? Somebody who can mimic voices, professional. And, of course, they have that lower bar is there. But mathematically, when you look at all these Moorhead tapes, it's different mathematically. And it's weird. I mean, it's more weird than people think.
Yeah, that is weird.
Have you had a chance to talk to Ron?
I did. Yes.
Oh, you did.
And he did.
I'm just curious. How did that go?
I'll tell you, and I'm sure he won't mind because nothing he said to me is anything that he hasn't said in public before about this kind of thing. But
no, Ron's very open-minded.
Yeah, he said when I said to him, "Dude, these sounds, I'm very sure are not what they'd normally be interpreted as being, like a giant hairy hominid or whatever Bigfoot is supposed to be. They're not Bigfoot, Sasquatch, but tall whites." And I gave him a little bit of evidence suggesting so, and just generally told him my view of it all.
Yes.
And he said, well, that's interesting, and you might be right. He said all that he's ever said was that whatever made the sounds had big feet, left large footprints. Right. Other than that, they couldn't see them. They could hear them, but they weren't there.
It's interesting because actually the footprints that were left in the Sierra camp were bigger than normal Bigfoot footprints. They were massive.
Right. Well, tall whites themselves have huge feet. The 8 foot tall, 9 foot tall, 10 foot tall individuals have gigantic feet. And the size of their feet was commented on, of course. Well, not of course, because it's of course to me, but lots of people haven't heard my ideas about Skinwalker Ranch yet. But Skinwalker Ranch is definitely psychological warfare launched on people to get them away from an underground cryptoterrestrial habitation. I mean, even the craft that are talked about are the same kinds of craft that Charles Hall saw in Nevada. The RV craft or tic-tac craft, as well as larger, darker craft. The pilots, as seen by the Gorman family, or that's a pseudonym, I can't remember what their real name was, but the ranchers that were there originally at Skinwalker Ranch before NIDS came in, said that the RVs were piloted by giants, huge men in black uniforms with visors that left massive footprints. Now, yeah, they got dirty big feet.
And of course, the Skinwalker Ranch has got this long history of people getting very ill when they dig.
Right. Yeah, right. You're right, Doug.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, underground. Yeah, that's right.
Have you ever had a conversation with the owner, the new owner of Skinwalker Ranch?
No, I haven't. I listened to him doing a podcast or something just like a couple of weeks ago. But other than that, I'd never even considered him. I didn't even realize who he was or anything like that.
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting to arrange a call between you two.
Yeah, for sure. I'd be very interested.
The thing is, some of the things you talk about, Ryan, are very far out, but you have to realize you're an extremely articulate person and extremely educated, and you don't come across as a nut, okay?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
thank you.
You come across
that's nice
somebody who is extremely sane.
Oh, thank you very much. That's the best compliment I've had all day.
Okay.
Yeah, cheers.
And it's
but I do understand that if I hadn't had the experiences myself, I wouldn't believe them either. You know, I do appreciate and understand. That can be very difficult when you're hearing people talking like this.
Well, what's interesting about when you talk is you are connecting dots, even for myself. You know, those little dots that connect that go, oh, that's interesting. And I do wonder if you didn't connect some dots for Ron, you know, when you talk to him.
Well, maybe, yeah. He said he came across as being, you know, wonderfully understanding and and forgiving, you know, because I've just sort of come out of nowhere.
Sure.
This upstart. Yeah. He doesn't know who I am, and I'm saying to him basically, "Hey, you got it wrong." You know, I mean that. Yeah. You know, like he responded in a very gracious kind of way, and he's obviously a very lovely guy, and just said to me, "Well, yeah, anything's possible. Thanks for that." You know, which is
yeah, you'd never meet a nicer person, and even Ron, you know, completely is investigating the quantum aspect.
Right,
you know?
right.
So he realizes something's not right in Denmark.
No, yeah, him and Scott Nelson both, right?
Because there's something not right.
Yeah, because Scott Nelson, remember, 2 years ago we had both those gentlemen at a convention we were at.
Yeah,
and you know they're
I picked Ron up at the airport and got
they never quit, because that's one thing I was talking to Ron and Scott both. Yeah. We had an opportunity to just have some one-on-one time.
And Scott,
they just keep pushing that envelope because they're not satisfied either yet.
Right. Yeah, that's well, there's evidence of high technology associated with Bigfoot. You know, and that's inexplicable, really, isn't it? I mean, Ron Moorhead himself talks about how there was this sound of a hum that he heard at one stage, like it was coming from within the mountain or from the trees, or you know, orbs and UFOs, and I think at one stage he said there was something that reminded him of the light, like the blade of a lightsaber without the handle. It was scanning the ground like a meter-long beam of light. I mean, this is evidence for a very sophisticated community of cryptoterrestrials, or whatever you want to call them. Mm-hmm. Hardly just sort of leftover hominid population from ancient times. You know,
are there any other recordings that are similar to the Sierra sounds that may have got put into a different bucket and we've never heard them?
I have gone a little bit out of my way to sort of listen on YouTube anyway to different people saying that they're recording Bigfoot and things like that. Some of the sounds are very interesting, but I really don't know what to make of them. They could be anything to me. I'm not an expert at that kind of thing and identifying animal sounds and things like that. But I do know that the Sierra sounds in particular, that piece of sound is very, very close or identical to what I've heard myself, to what other people who have claimed to have seen tall whites and heard them, what their language sounds like. It is them, especially because of the elements of high technology. And even the humming come from within the earth. This is something that's repeated in other cases that I've identified as being cryptoterrestrial contact, tall white contact. The underground habitations make these sounds, whatever it is. And so if you have that in concert with these other things, these samurai sounding language and things like that, there's nothing else they could be. This is them.
Well, years ago, I got to meet Al Berry and hang out with Al Berry a bit. And man, you talk about it. These are some very sincere people. I really don't.
Yeah.
I'm almost 99.999. There was no hoaxing. They were just recording what was going on.
Yeah, for sure. I'd believe it. Yeah.
Very sincere people. So, have you ever been afraid recently by any of your activity where you're actually, shocked or afraid or feel fear, your heart's racing?
No, I don't have fear, and I haven't had it for a few years, but I was having it, those experiences I was describing to you before. At some stage, I'd have a complete feeling of serenity, which seems to be some kind of emotional manipulation, cognitive manipulation on their parts, where they use technology, they wear it in their helmets. I call it telepath tech. Charles Hall called it electronics. They don't seem to be any more naturally telepathic or psychic than we are ourselves, but they rely on advanced technologies to get in our heads.
Okay.
And they can manipulate our minds. They convince. It takes a lot, and I talk about this in my book as well. The evidence would suggest it takes a lot of practice and training for them to be skillful enough to wield this kind of technology in the first place and effectively read our minds, effectively steer us down other channels, effectively intimidate us, place fear in our minds, or sometimes fill our minds with feelings of love and acceptance, which is another way of sort of disarming us.
Sure.
Some individuals require being frightened. Other individuals might just dig in.
Over 2 million construction jobs around the world are taking their projects to the next level. From roadways to railways, from skyscrapers to homes. Make your vision a reality. Build with Autodesk Construction Cloud. Try it free today at construction.autodesk.com.
If they're fearful. And those kinds of individuals, perhaps, on the spur of the moment, they make the decision that will fill that person's mind with love and acceptance, which has the same effect in the end. It's about removing us as a threat. Yes, this kind of technology, so they said to me at one stage, we apologize for the mesmerization and we apologize for the memory manipulation. And I said to them, that's okay. I'm sure you know what you're doing. But earlier on, I'd been quite frightened in different encounters. There was one encounter I had with, where I'd said, I'm getting a bit tired of just being allowed to remember sort of like tabletop medical procedures. Could you guys actually come to my house and maybe have a cup of tea or a coffee or a beer with me? What about that? And then a few days later, I was having this conversation with my wife in the kitchen, or I thought it was my wife at the time, sort of like a doppelganger type situation going on here maybe, where we're engrossed in this conversation. I can't remember what we were talking about, unfortunately, but it was very interesting. We were there engaged for like, I'm not sure, maybe over 10 minutes, but it could have been as long as an hour, I'm not sure. Suddenly I started feeling a bit strange. My head started sort of going a bit weird. When Charles Hall talks about his mind clouding over, when they're manipulating his mind, it's just like that. My mind started clouding over. I dropped down to my knees. I started crawling out of the kitchen, started grabbing socks on the floor and rolling them up and putting them in a line. Like my mind once again entered that strange sort of compulsive mind state. Then I started floating. Again, levitating, was taken back into my room over the top of my sleeping wife, which is when I realized that wasn't my wife in the kitchen. Gently put me down on the bed, and I hadn't even gotten a chance to lie down properly, and they relinquished the control. I was completely awake. And this message again, like of that kind of like a packet of linguistic information, said to me, "We just had a date." And the adrenaline that shot through my heart was just massive. And then she said, "I roll my eyes at you," which I think was like a rebuke for her way of saying I should know not to be that frightened by now or something. And then I could hear footsteps walking through the house, the front door opening and closing, and her footsteps going up the driveway, and then nothing.
That must have freaked you out, man.
I think that was the last time
crazy.
that was the last time I ever felt that kind of fear.
Yeah.
Now through, sometimes I think they deliberately make sure I don't feel fear because they're manipulative in that way, emotionally manipulative and things like that. But I have had interactions with them since where there seems to be little to no mesmerization. They actually gave me something to eat once. They came to my house, some of them wearing boa suits, one of them and another one dressed as more like as one of their medics, when they have like black lenses in their eyes. Their eyes are naturally very big, but and blue normally. But as the males get older, their eyes turn pink. But the iris turns pink. But it can go through violet to pink as they slowly get older. But the medics wear black lenses over their eyes that makes them look like they have black eyes, completely blacked out eyes. One guy was there that was a medic, and then there were a couple of what I take to be soldiers or guards in the like Mothman looking suits, boa suits. They gave me a cake or a biscuit, like a cookie type thing, and I ate that. And then they told me to lie back down, and I did. And then one, I think it was a child, and this is just the oddest thing I know. I mean, the whole thing's odd, but it brought it back to the mundane, which was just weird. One of them sneezed on the back of my head. I think it was one of the, like a little one that had come in to look what was happening. And I felt all of the saliva, and the cold, like the warmth and then the cold of the saliva after the warmth of the breath had gone. And then I turned around to look, and one of them in the boa suit had knelt right down. Their face was right there, but I didn't feel any fear. Earlier on, I would have. And then after they'd gone, I still had the food on the front of my teeth. Now, people might find this infuriating and frustrating and say, why did you not take a sample? What are you thinking? Or dab down, get a swab and get the saliva that was left over from sneezing on the back of your head, which I'm pretty sure was not some kind of cultural interchange, exchange, sneezing on me. But I didn't do that. I don't know. I'm not sure if I didn't think to do it, or if I did think to do it but thought it would be, just not the done thing somehow. Like it would be offensive in some way, or like the moment was sort of sacred in some kind of way, and that would be to diminish it in some way. I don't know, but I've had a lot of interesting encounters.
Do you have one story, Ryan, that you've never told anybody ever?
Story that I've never told anybody ever. Yeah, there are a few. I'm just trying to think. I can't, off the top of my head, think of a good one that I'd actually like to say, because there's some that I don't like. There's some that I don't like talking about.
Yeah.
Oh no, I have talked about that one before. I was just thinking of another one. I've never talked to anyone about this. Now this actually brings it back into a kind of like a very like the ufology and close encounter experiences and things like that. People are very familiar with the idea or the theme of baby presentation.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have had that happen. Actually, I just thought of another one that's related to this. I'll tell you two that I haven't told anyone before. One was where there was an individual that calls herself Branu, Now, she actually claims to be the individual that Charles Hall called the teacher. I have no reason to doubt her, but there was a particular individual that Charles Hall in his Millennial Hospitality books talks about. She was given the code name the teacher. This individual that calls herself Branu, which I spell Branu when I have to, she had a baby, presented it to me. There were a couple of individuals there. There were a couple of guards there, and I just ignored them and was just thought the baby was the most wonderful thing, and was like, tickling the baby on the like double chin and all this kind of thing. Now that I haven't actually talked about to people before. So that's baby presentation. I was thinking, well, that's interesting. Okay, fair enough. But on another time, I was taken to what was like a giant hangar that was filled with children, tall white children, playing ball games with adults that were there as teachers looking on. And I just wandered through the place, amazed by everything I was seeing. The hangar, though, was just like a normal hangar, like an aircraft hangar, or maybe even like a stadium, like a basketball stadium type. There's huge space with a roof. And I walked in amongst the games where the adults were showing the kids how to play different games. And some of the little kids were like looking at me and staring at me, and then kept playing. One of the young men looked at me for a long time and didn't necessarily look that happy with me as well. I just felt blissful though the whole time. Maybe he was thinking, why is this guy staring at me? But as I sort of moved on again, a very, very tall woman, huge, like 8 to 9 foot tall, came out of another room and shouted out in English across everyone, "That's the end. He's going home now." That I've never told anyone before.
Wow.
Man, your interactions are just wow. I mean, the stories and then your own interactions, and then mind-blowing stuff.
So what was your thought on why you think you were there to observe this game?
Well, I think maybe it had something to do with me. Now, with this particular memory, once they returned me, they said to me, "Don't ever tell." Right? So I'm telling now.
But I think you're on radio talking about.
Yeah, I know. It's just between you guys, me, and the four walls, though, isn't it? We'll be right.
Yeah, that's it.
But since then, they've sort of relinquished a few things they didn't want me to talk about. Now they don't care what I say. They've made that clear they don't care. So this thing I can talk about now. Now, for some reason, they didn't want me to say that. There are other experiences of these beings, of Mudgeonner beings, that I've talked to that I'm fairly convinced are genuine experiences, contactees that have had things happen to them that I have never talked about, that have happened to me that I've never talked about, which is a way of sort of, what would you call it? It's anyway, it's a way of sorting through people sometimes, and sometimes that means that'll give a good tick in the box if someone's telling the truth. If they say, "Oh, I had this experience with the beings," and I'm like, "Oh, that happened to me, but I've never said that." So that's, so I keep some things to myself and deliberately don't say them as well, to keep some of that in the background to work out sometimes whether people establish whether they're truthful or not, or just mimicking my stories, or stories of other people. But exactly why I was not meant to talk about that experience, I don't know. And I think it has something to do with me asking at one stage, can I see my own children? Or people that my genetic material, because at one stage I asked that. And there's a possibility that was some kind of performance almost for me to see, as a donor, as it were, some of the progeny of this,
Interesting.
And I think the cryptoterrestrials are particularly secretive, or they have been, of the details of their interbreeding programs, their breeding programs, which are extensive and have been going on for centuries, but that are supposed to be voluntary. The person's supposed to give consent. Now they may not remember that they gave consent, and of course that is an ethical issue. I take a little bit of umbrage at that. In a way, if you've consented to do something, but then they've taken the memory away that you consented, the consent still stands according to these cryptoterrestrials. So some people that have experiences with cryptoterrestrials are having it for that reason. I think sometimes I've been that to them. At others, but I've also had other roles to play. They were very keen on me writing this book, and that's what they said to me. They said to me, because years ago, like I said before, they'd said, we're going to hold you to the bargain. And then they'd said to me again and reminded me just a few years ago, remember that bargain. And they wanted me to write this. And as I was writing it, once I was well on the way with it, they thanked me. Now, and I was saying to them, why? Why would you, you're living the dream. You've got it made in a sense that no one can really work it out. No one knows that you exist. Everyone thinks 1,001 different things. There's so much disinformation, counterintelligence. No one, if you just left it, probably no one would ever work it out. That's what I said to them. Why are you helping me with this? Why are you doing this? Encouraging me with this, setting me straight where I go wrong. So, offering me information and telling me what's compelling, what I should include, and all this kind of stuff. They've been taking me by the hand. So I don't have the same kind of claim to fame that people like Mac Tonnies and Jacques Vallée do, who, as far as I am aware, were not contactees, but people that just had massively complex minds that were able to put a lot of this stuff together on their own. They have been helping me with this.
Do you think they want acknowledgement to a point?
They want to be recognized now as being another race of people that occupies this earth.
Really?
They want it to end up becoming normal, so that they're just another group of people, which they are. And they're sick of the subterfuge and the cover-up and all that kind of stuff. In the past, at different stages in history, they have been open. Like, for instance, in the Celtic fairy faith, for example, in Ireland and Scotland, the common people were very familiar that they were with these cryptoterrestrials. They knew that there was another race of beings living in the hills and in the mountains. They knew you don't put your cattle too close to where they live, or the cattle will be mutilated. They knew that you don't attack them or injure their children or scare their children or anything like that, or you might be harmed yourself. They knew that they had to be beguiled and placated and bargained with and all this kind of stuff. And they knew that they were just another group of people, magical maybe, but another group of people nonetheless. And that's been forgotten. And certainly just in recent history, we've just forgotten it. And the powers that be of our own world leaders or people pulling the strings behind the show, whoever they may be, it's been in their best interest.
Every year, we say we'll wake up earlier, exercise more, really rest, and eat healthier. It's hard for us, but for dogs, not so much. Dogs are up at dawn, run for fun, sleep like champs, and they love eating fresh, healthy food every single meal. Give your dog another healthy habit. Real fresh food from the Farmer's Dog. Get 50% off your first box at thefarmersdog.com/listen.
To have treaties signed with them that specify they are not allowed to reveal themselves to us until these rulers, our governors, whoever they are, say that it's okay to. Now, that's well and good, and they play that game for a certain period. But in the end, what the cryptoterrestrials say goes, and we've pushed it too far.
So are they they themselves part of the cover-up?
Well, they have been, I think, yeah. Well, they're very good at that. I mean, being clandestine, moving about, convincing you that you haven't seen anything, that they're something that they aren't. They have a lot of skill and practice in that. But at one stage there, the tall, fair beings that allegedly met with President Eisenhower in the 50s that wanted us to disarm that said that they would reveal themselves to the public, that said that they would help us get rid of a different kind of cryptoterrestrial that was perhaps more, less agreeable, the greys or whatever you want to call them, and were denied and were rejected. For a long time now, they've been ready to come out. Well, for them, it's not long because their lifespans are so long. For them, it's just a blip. But for us, from the 50s until now, they've been biding their time, being told that they're not supposed to reveal themselves, still revealing themselves to select individuals here and there.
Well, don't you think there's more CT encounters now than ever?
I think so, yes. And they're really upping it. You know, like they're upping the ante. Yeah, that's right. I agree with you for sure.
Yeah, I believe there is too. I also believe that it's still a very small percentage of people that will talk about it.
Well, that's true as well. I think, due to the stigma and whatnot, I think that the Pentagon admissions have helped a lot with that. So that's a positive thing that even though they haven't really let much out of the bag, they've at least sanctioned that you're allowed to talk about it now. Public people, public intellectuals, public like journalists, scientists, academics, they're not going to be, derided in the same way that they were just before. And you're getting a fair few people now that didn't really touch and go anywhere near UFOs that are now finding it safe to and writing books about it, academics that are prepared to look at it. This is all a good thing. This is like it might be a slow drip-fed disclosure, but it's better than nothing,
Say, Ryan, we only have 11 minutes. I want to throw you just some quick questions.
Yeah.
Do you think that the government has stolen some of their technology, or have they fed us some of the technology, or have, like the Roswell crash, did that have anything to do with this? And then the other question, are there, the missing 411 phenomena, does this have anything to do with that? Are they, have they actively taken people?
So the first element there, I think, some of their craft have crashed. The Roswell craft was a future human vessel, but it was a time traveling machine, not the particular race that I'm talking about, but a different one. I think that they've been gifted craft by different groups of cryptoterrestrials as well. I mean, like the United States Air Force, and I think the NSA has a lot of involvement with Nellis Air Force Base and the United States Air Force, but they've been gifted craft. Sometimes we are assisted in technological advancements, but only in limited ways. They don't want us getting off the Earth without their permission. If we want to go to the moon, we have to ask them. If we want to go to Mars, even non-manned missions require their go-ahead. And we're certainly not zipping all around, the galaxy in back-engineered craft where our hands are tied. Homo sapiens is we're prisoners here at the moment until we sort of grow up a bit psychologically, I think. But I think also some of the crashed vessels may be vessels that are left over from cryptoterrestrials coming into conflict with each other on occasion, because there are two races, from what I understand, that are closely allied, and then there's been another race that didn't necessarily see eye to eye with them. All of them future humans, though, and that some crashes might be remnants of cryptoterrestrials taking each other out here and there. But when it comes that we assist them in a large way as well when it comes to technologies, which is we supply our prefabrications, like materials, fabrications, and technologies of our own making to them, which they use to a superior effect with their superior science to create their own craft. Because a lot of the craft they brought with them, they were grown in 0G, that are organic, sentient almost life forms, you'd say, they still have some of those in their fleet, but the largest portion of their fleet is made up of craft that are made out of our materials, supplied to them by the United States Air Force and others. So when you see, which I have seen, inside one of their Tic-Tac craft, it has bus seats. It has fighter plane pilot seats for the pilots. It has windows that look like they're made from, or at least partly from our materials. So for whatever reason, they don't have the what would you call it, like the infrastructure here to establish some kind of process that can produce and grow these organic craft. Therefore, most of the craft are what we would normally look at and say look like an alien replica vehicle, but that's them. So if you see a craft that has like girders and seams and is not just one seamless part, but is actually made up like on a production line, like our own vehicles, that's not necessarily one of ours back engineered. That could very well be one of theirs. So that sort of makes nonsense of the dichotomy between ours and theirs. So we are supportive of them partially as well, and I think it's a to and fro there, give and take.
Well, I want to clarify something. So it's obviously a very small section of our government that would know who these are, what they are. Correct? There's a very tiny amount of the government.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. That's. I think there's layers of different echelons of people knowing a little bit more, a little bit more, a little bit more. But some people know all of it, and yeah, that's right. The very small proportion of the government, or the black government, or dark government, whatever you want to call it.
What are the cattle mutilations about?
Primarily intimidation. So that's there's trying to remove people from properties that are adjacent to habitations. So they move around the earth and they chase the warmth. The cryptoterrestrials, they have habitations all across the face of the earth. They particularly have them in like state and national parks, and wilderness areas and under the ocean. And then sometimes in military zones, like, famously Nallis. But Area 51, the tall whites that Charles Hall said there were just south of Area 51. But so they
wow.
Yeah. But they're all over the place. But but they move. Yeah, sorry, that's what I was going to say. Had a bit of a brain blip. But the cattle mutilations, that's primarily as a deterrent or to expel people from properties. So if you have ranches, as our community areas are expanding and encroaching on their world, more and more areas they would have been utilizing, they move around, they leave areas dormant in the winter across the face of the earth, keep moving around wherever it's warm, suits them better. If there's a ranch that particularly has people living there that is occupied by people that are disagreeable to them, that perhaps have dogs, that are planning on hunting, that are planning on laying traps in the woods nearby and things like that. These are the kinds of people that they really want away from their lands for fear of safety of their kids. They're particularly concerned about dogs. And when it comes also, and they're also vegans. They're vegetarians. They don't eat animals. They don't even wear animal products. They disapprove of animal agriculture. Now, they have an interesting contradictory relationship with animals where they don't necessarily want anything to do with animals. They don't keep them as pets. It's not cultural for them to have dogs and cats and animals about that they train and interact with. They don't interact with animals in that way. They consider them to be separate and apart. But they are very, very interested in preserving the environment, preserving animal life. But then when it comes to a situation where you have like animal agriculture, which they perceive to be an evil in a way, they will use the animals as a tool to intimidate people that are encroaching on their territories. And they've been doing it forever and a day. The fairies and elves used to do that. And now they do it still. And then people talk about what are they using the organs for? They're taking them and well, I think if they're taking pieces, much of that's probably going in the trash can. I don't think that it has, not primarily anyway, maybe it has some kind of secondary function. Sometimes they're taking samples or something like that. For the most part, they're trying to instill fear. And it is very scary, If they can remove people from a property and it's replaced with people that are more agreeable to them, perhaps they don't have designs on like hunting or laying traps, they don't have dogs, they go, oh, maybe this is as good as we're going to get. Or if they continue to thrust people out of a place, word will spread through the local community of Homo sapiens that a place is haunted, that you shouldn't live there, that your cattle will die, that you'll be woken up in the middle of the night by scary red-eyed beings, and then a place can sit dormant for years and years, which is what they want. They want people off these lands.
Wow.
And as for the missing 411 kind of thing, yes, they have killed particularly hunters. In fact, they said to me that they have. How David Paulides has different categories, where he, of course, talks about, and one of his documentaries was Missing 411, The Hunted, but he has his profiling covers, different categories of people going missing. There'll be children, there'll be academics and scientists, or there'll be hunters. And that particular classification of hunters going missing in national and state parks, yes, they are responsible for at least some of that. And what it comes down to is they don't mess about if they feel threatened or if they feel their children are threatened. If a person has aggressive and malicious intent with a deadly weapon moving through their environment, they will kill them. And aggressive and malicious intent might be not towards the tall white, but towards the animals. But it's still aggressive and malicious intent, and things can go wrong. Like if a tall white child suddenly bursts out of a group of bushes and a hunter automatically fires and kills the child, the hunter's dead. They don't mess about. They believe in what they call death for death. We might say a life for a life, an eye for an eye. They call it death for death, and a lot of their system is built on that kind of tit for tat and showing aggression, responding with equal aggression when it's shown, and things like that.
Well, Ryan, unfortunately, we're out of time. So why don't you tell everyone where they can get your books, or where they can get your book, how they can get a hold of you, see your stuff.
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks. The book, Children of Orion, Finding the Cryptoterrestrials, it's published by Flying Disc Press, Philip Mantle. It's just available on Amazon, dudes. Like, it's a paperback, it's a hardcover, it's also an ebook. We were working on getting it turned into an audio, but that's fallen through, unfortunately. And I have a YouTube channel as well, which is just my name. So, if people are interested in contacting me, they can go to the About section of my YouTube channel. And I'm pretty sure there should be an email there under business inquiries. Someone said to me it's gone missing, but I'll fix that if it's gone.
Wow. Well, this has been a wild hour and a half. Let me tell you, eye-opening, very interesting. Ryan Musgrave-Evans, everybody, author of Children of Orion, Finding Cryptoterrestrials. Doug, we got to get out of here, man.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan.
Until next time, guys.
Get you back.
Yeah, definitely. Take care of each other, love each other, and Happy New Year, by the way, everybody. So next time we talk, it will be a brand new year. Bye, guys.